Okay, gamers, it's time. It's time for me to mute the effects volume and the environment volume so we can listen to some nice, relaxing music as we go through one of the most explosive patches we've seen for a very long time. I feel like I say that on every patch, but this one, the last patch was a bomb. This is a nuke. Okay, but actually, saying nuke is maybe inappropriate because I think that kind of implies that something got destroyed, whereas I actually don't think that's happened. In fact, almost everything here are some big, juicy buffs. But we've got to do this first. We have to do it first. We have to. There's no choice here. We've got to talk about Guardian. Because Firebrand has actually at long last been reworked. This is something that I have wanted for a long time. Firebrand has always been super hard to balance because its mechanics are so powerful. It has so little trade-off when going into damage and then defensive utility and even healing all in one package. And that has finally actually been addressed. And they really went above and beyond with this, in my opinion. A really elegant rework that definitely doesn't destroy the class whatsoever. And I think really gives it a lot more potential for being balanced correctly, so it doesn't oppress the meta, but still being really fun to play, really even more skillful, actually. Much more skillful, in my opinion. And also, better in PvP, too. You know, it basically got nuked from orbit ages ago in PvP, but I think this design really helps it. Now, of course, maybe not so good in PvP just yet, but we will, of course, see. So let's leap into it. What actually is going on here? So, the Firebrand Tome mechanic has been totally reworked. Tomes no longer have any activation time, so you can go into a tome anytime you want, has no cooldown, right? And they all share pages, and you generate a page every 8 seconds, just like Thief Initiative. Now, this is actually the design that I've suggested for a while. Now, to be clear, like, ArenaNet don't go, oh, Teapot said this, let's add that to the game. They obviously were thinking about this on their own. They were probably looking at feedback everywhere. But yeah, so I've got to go ahead and say it. I think this is the correct way to do it. I think this is the correct way to balance it. It's much better than say, oh, you can only use one tome. That's lame as hell. This is a much better approach, in my opinion, to balancing Firebrand. And here it is. The other thing they also did was that they made it so pages can have different page costs, just like Thief. As you can see here, the more powerful skills, the 5th skills and the 4th skill, cost 2 pages, or in some cases, 3 pages in Courage, right? The 3rd Courage skill that gives you stability, it gives you the damage reduction thing with the extra toughness, right? Gives you the Aegis. That's now 3 pages, so a very expensive ability. And you can see all the numbers here. I don't really want to go over these too much, because it's going to be quite difficult to actually predict this in a way, how this is going to go. And I want to put a bit of a disclaimer here. Because this is such a big design rework, it's actually quite hard to evaluate this without actually playing with it and kind of getting in there and seeing how it actually works. Because, and I think it's quite likely that it will either be really, really insane or maybe a bit not great. Maybe they hit it right in the middle first try, we'll see. Obviously, that's what they're going to try and do, but it's going to be a very interesting drop here. And what are they actually trying to do with this? So, what they've actually tried to do, funny enough, is nerf the damage builds, so you have to trade off, you have to trade off some of your damage when you go into your healing tomes, your utility tomes, and so you can't just go full blast and still maintain all of your utility. And the funny thing is, this actually makes the more hybrid builds, or the heal builds, actually a bit more flexible. Heal Firebrand, honestly, it was a pretty mediocre healer. A very mediocre healer. Other healers were far superior. This is actually a buff to Heal Firebrand, almost certainly. Because Heal Firebrand is now going to have more regular access to its really powerful burst healing skills, instead of having to wait a pretty long cooldown to actually use your key defensives. This is more of a nerf to the damage builds, like the Quickness Firebrand build, rather than the damage, full damage Firebrand build, right? As opposed to the support builds, which is pretty good, if you think about it. Because, in fact, the heal Firebrand build is the one that is kind of surprisingly lackluster. The thing that really carried heal Firebrand was the massive stability and massive Aegis uptime. That particularly makes it incredibly good in fractals and certain raid encounters. But now that Aegis is being a bit more spread about, that kind of dominance won't be quite as relevant. And of course, they now have so much more tuning potential here. They can tune the cooldowns of the Tome abilities, they can change page regeneration rates, they can change page costs to really balance this stuff. This is a very, very good change in my opinion. Really exciting. And honestly, if you play Firebrand right now, I think that it will feel a bit weird once you get used to this, but I think it's going to feel really fun to play, actually. Because this means you're going to be able to do all sorts of crazy stuff. You're going to be able to be very, very responsive. You can react to things really quickly. You can make these dynamic on-the-fly trade-offs, right? Really, really fun, engaging gameplay that's going to reward you for managing your pages and managing your abilities and countering stuff in the fight. I am actually really excited to try out this change. Sounds really, really cool. And they kind of bust and stuff, they nerfs and stuff, right? We'll see how that kind of comes out in the wash. They made a few other changes, and honestly, these ones are really, really fun as well. So, Swift Scholar, now if you use 3 consecutive skills in a tome, in a single tome, right? In Fire Tome or in the Heal Tome or in the Courage Tome, you get a page back. So it's kind of, it rewards you for kind of committing. So if you go full blast and go big heal, then you actually go ahead and get an extra charge. You can either save that for another tome, or you can get even more healing out of those. So that's a really fun interaction, and using that intelligently, I think is going to be very interactive and quite enjoyable to play around. You don't get quickness when you leave a tome, only when you enter a tome, so a slight kind of readjustment there with the way it works. And here's the big one too! All 3 of the Grandmaster traits now are specialized. So Stoic Demeanor, this now gives resistance and might whenever you, stun or immobilize or slow an enemy. That's actually pretty damn strong, by the way. I could definitely see some kind of usage of this in PvP. Like, area resistance is a very powerful effect because it can just shut down any kind of snares, that kind of stuff. For like a more aggressive, almost like aggressive support build, could see some potential there. Quick Fire. Oh yeah, and you get your F3 passive, your Tome of Courage, like the Aegis every few seconds. Oh, every few seconds, like every 40 seconds, whatever. You get that now as well. So Quick Fire. Now you get your Tome of Justice passive effect, so that's the burning. This basically means that if you want to do damage, you have to take this now. So again, this is the whole specialization thing. Because Lawmaster, this trait was broken. You used to take this on every single Firebrand build because you always want the passives all the time. Now, you're actually going to have to choose what passive you want to have all the time. You can either have the burning, you can have the Aegis, or you can have the healing, right? The resolve, right? Which is also pretty important for support builds because you can share that with virtues to give extra regen and, of course, extra endurance regeneration out there as well. So I really love this design change. Quickfire, I think, is a really cool trait to play with. I enjoy this a lot, actually. It's been very sad that it didn't really see much play after it initially got nerfed on the launch of Path of Fire. And then Lawmaster, you get pages more quickly. It's going to be a page every 6 seconds instead of every 8 seconds. Bit of a no-brainer here for support builds. You get more pages to use to support your allies. And you also get to share your resolve, which is this passive regeneration to everyone else. Subtle nerf here, by the way, that regular Firebrands don't get the free sustain anymore, which is relevant, by the way. It's actually pretty good. You heal for, what, like 150 every second? Permanently with Lawmaster on any Firebrand build. That's actually very good. It really adds over a longer encounter, actually. So Lawmaster giving that to every single Firebrand in the entire game. This is a really good change to these Grandmaster traits, and I think there's a lot of fun potential for taking different abilities here instead of always taking one. So I really like the design, actually. With what they've done here with Firebrand. Really exciting, actually. I think this is, it's going to be weird. It's going to be funky. And they're going to tune it down the line. They might have to add an internal cooldown to tomes, for example. They might have to change the way pages are. They might have to change the page costs, the cooldowns, all that kind of stuff. But this is a big step in the right direction to fixing the Firebrand dominance in World versus World, bringing Firebrand back into PvP, and reducing the pure Firebrand meta literally everywhere, that dominance, that extreme utility, and giving it some holes and rolls, right? Like they talked in the Balance Manifesto. Awesome. Love it. What a great change. What a great start to the balance patch. And while we're here, we actually might as well talk about Guardian and kind of finish that off too. We also have some buffs to Willbender. So Lethal Tempo. This is just, you get a damage modifier. Pretty much, you can pretty much maintain this. in PvE all the time, and now that's just doubled. So from a 5% modifier, now we're going up to a 10% modifier as well. And we also see another extra 5% damage here with Tyrant's momentum, right, as well. So this just gives you an extra 1%, right? So you get another 3%, so now we get a 15% damage modifier with Tyrant's momentum here on the Grandmaster trait. Now, weirdly enough, you know, Willbender, it's been one of those specs that everyone kind of forgot about, I feel like, in PvE. It never really found its niche. It didn't find its thing that it does. It has Guardian utility, I guess, which is pretty nice. But yeah, giving it some more damage. It probably is going to be that slightly more glass cannon, less utility-focused Guardian build. So just giving it more damage is good. Fun change with Heaven's Palm as well. Now you can use that every 20 seconds for a really nice AoE crowd control effect. But just by slamming down into the ground. And it even does damage too. 3.0 power coefficient is pretty damn significant, actually. Pretty good skill. And hey, it's a shadow set too, so decent utility. There it is. There it is. And how could we forget? Actually, scrolling back up here, very important note, the auto attack on Tome Courage, on Courage Tome, doesn't give stab anymore, because obviously you could use it every 8 seconds, right, with no cooldown, because, you know, you can go into the Tome anytime you want, so it gives proc now. That's actually a pretty big nerf, by the way. That is a subtly big nerf. That means the stability that you get is going to be from Stand Your Ground, the mantra, or from the epilogue of Tome 3. That is actually relevant. It's not dead, though, because bear in mind, you can use your F3 more because you don't get gated by the Tome of Courage cooldown anymore, so you can actually essentially use it every 25 seconds. So you can, every 25 seconds, you can get in there, apply damage reduction, apply Aegis, apply stability. So in some ways, this actually works out as a buff, because the epilogue skill here is incredibly strong. Really strong. It gives 10% damage reduction, protection, Aegis, and stability. That is really tasty, actually, on this particular ability. So it's really good. As you can see here. Here it is. Look at that. What a skill, guys. What a skill. Epilogue. Unbroken lines. Juicy ability, my friends. So, Firebrand mains, do not be discouraged, because it's still going to be really good. Again, this is very much what is referred to as a buff nerf, right? So, in some ways, it's going to be better. In some ways, it's going to be weaker. But that is good, because the design of Firebrand was incredibly oppressive to the meta and causing a lot of problems in every game mode, to be frank. But what is this? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Dragon Hunter buffs. Oh, yeah. So, let's see what we've got here. Spear of Justice, more damage. Hunter's Ward, more damage. Big Game Hunter. Bonus tether duration is up from 66 to 100% in PvE only. Okay? So, what does this mean? Well, it means you have your Big Game Hunter up nearly all the time, right? And that, alongside some extra damage here on some of these kind of key abilities that you're going to be using on Dragon Hunter, is just going to buff DH. And also notice they also buffed a few other Guardian abilities, specifically Sword of Justice and Sword Auto Attacks and Great Sword 5, the Binding Blade. The pulse damage is going up to 0.2 to 0.3. Bear in mind, by the way, this is actually a pretty long pulsing effect. That's a lot of damage now on this skill. Bear that in mind. Because again, look, that's the pulse damage, and it pulses a lot of times. So you get a lot of value out of that. That's a more significant change than you might expect. But there you go. And True Shot, this was actually more of a usability change. They gave it more damage, but increased the cooldown. This turns out that you actually get, I think, a little bit less damage overall, because you can't get as many True Shots off. It's a 50% cooldown increase, but it's not quite a 50% damage increase. But this is more like, so you don't have to stop every 3 seconds, right? And you're able to move a bit more. I think they were even thinking of allowing you to move while using this ability. It's a little bit scary for PvP. Maybe they'd even split that with the way it works just because of that, but I think they probably wouldn't want to split something that aggressively. But yeah. Oh, yeah. It's pretty impressive stuff. I think they could have gone a little bit harder on DH. DH is a bit of a sad situation, guys. Okay, it's a little bit of a sad state. But you know what? It's getting there. This is a good start on helping out DH reclaim its position of glory as a damage build. You love to see it. You love to see it indeed. And Dragon's more buffed up as well for a bit more damage there. Just more damage. It's going to do more damage. It's going to be pretty good. It's going to be pretty good, I think. And there was a slight nerf as well in World vs. World, because, again, Deidre was actually very dominant in World vs. World, a massive damage dealer, and these Hunter's Wards could really lock down players. It would be quite difficult to break out of them, so pretty challenging stuff to get out of that ring, but now it's going to be a little bit easier, as it only lasts for 3 seconds. Indeed. And this is a change they've done quite a lot in PvE. A lot of traits, and we'll see this in Warrior, a lot of traits that only work on, say, when you land a stun, you know, now they'll activate on Defiant foes too. So traits that give you extra damage when you attack someone who's CC'd will work against Defiant enemies. Because obviously, right, you can't, you know, you can't disable a boss, right? So, well, not all the time anyway. And this means that those traits were kind of a bit not great in PvE in general, because bosses in general typically don't get knocked over and stuff like that. But now you'll just get them all the time, like on Heavy Light, for example. I was actually hyped about this, but you can't get the stability and the damage increase on Heavy Light, so I'm pretty sad about that. But you know what? That's okay. That trait would have been kind of busted if you could do that. So yeah, good news for all of the Guardian fans, Dragon Hunter and Willbender fans out there. And honestly, maybe some cautious optimism for Firebrand fans as well. As again, I think this will be really, really fun to play. This is one of those, you know, I think when ArenaNet's doing a redesign, they have to be a little bit careful to not make it unfun, right? They need to make sure that the build is still fun and the Elite Specialization is still enjoyable to interact with and play. And I think this change will actually help out with that. So, let's move on to something else. Oh, in the same vein as Dragon Hunter, Engineer. Here we go. So the really big change, this is a cool one too, is that what they've done is with the enhanced capacity storage unit, that trait basically gives you 150 heat total, and some abilities get bonus effects above 100% heat. All right? Well, that was kind of cool, but it turned out that not every ability had that type of effect, right? Because they just didn't. Well, good news. Now they do. What they've done is they've essentially gone through every single Hollowsmith ability and toolbelt skill and so on, and just said, you know what? You get even more bonus effects when you use this Grandmaster trait. Really fun change to play around, and of course, hefty buffs here. As you can see, Laser Disc, more damage. Blade Burst, more damage. Prismatic Singularity, more damage. Particle Accelerator, more damage. Right, so this, we don't know the numbers on this just yet. We'll obviously see that when the patch actually drops. We see a few numbers here, but not all the numbers. Regardless, this smells of big buffs for damage, power, Hollowsmith in particular. That build could end up really, really strong. You're going to see a bit of a taste here. Corona Burst is 1.5 coefficient up from 1.2. That's a pretty significant increase there, right? The auto attacks on Sword, this is a big deal. Auto attacks are, if you see auto attack buffs, this is always a big deal, by the way, on any build. You'd be amazed how much damage in pretty much every single build out there comes from auto attacking. So check this out. On the Sword auto attack here, increased damage bonus above 50% from 10 to 20, and then over 100%, it's 20 to 30, right? And the same across all of these abilities here. Very, very strong indeed, and the same thing has kind of happened on the second ability here, Refraction Cutter as well. A bit of a power, a bit of a increase there with this stuff. And again, this is on the blades. Bear in mind, that might not look like a very big number. You have multiple blades, so that's actually better than it looks. Two, they also gave a bit more Condi to Hollow as well. You know, with Solar Focusing Lens, you now have extra burning, 2 to 3 seconds, and then also a bit more on Photonic Blasting Module 2. So it looks like the direction you're going to go is going to be Sword Hollowsmith, which is actually kind of fun, because Sword has the really nifty option of being able to use Shield. You can use Blowtorch, rather the pistol, for more damage, but you have the option of actually having a really nice defensive, and NG in general is pretty tanky. You've got Big Boomer. If you take the Shield block, you have Shield block. You can be pretty defensive. You have a really good heal skill with Healing Turret, so there's actually a lot going on there for Engineer in terms of being a pretty tanky, durable build that can do a lot of really good, useful things. for, you know, for your group, right? Overall. So definitely some really fun stuff here for Holo. Sword Holo, again, we don't know exactly, but definitely looks like it is going to be back. And these will also affect PvP as well. Bear that in mind. And Holo started to make a bit of a resurgence with the recent changes to the tools trait line, actually. And this might actually help out with that a little bit more. Particularly, you can get even more Condi Cleanse using, you know, using Cauterize if you want to, right? You can use more, you know, you can use Coolant Blast is even better now, actually. I believe this heal skill is starting to see a little bit of play here. I mean, yeah, I guess not all of this is that relevant for PvP, but some of it's relevant for PvP, okay? Some of it is. Some of it could be pretty cool. And Hard Light Arena, this is kind of a fun one. Kind of support Boon Holo hasn't really been a thing. But this is actually a pretty strong skill. If you look at this, it gives Fury, Protection, and Regeneration. So I could absolutely imagine some kind of build for open world that would utilize this ability. Maybe in Celestial, you get kind of a hybrid Holosmith, a bit of Condi and a bit of power. And then you also have that boon duration. Boom, you slap down your Hard Light Arena. You're above 100 heat. So you've got 100% boon duration on all these boons on allies. So you're actually buffing allies a lot there in a fight. So that could actually be pretty damn good. In this type of situation. And then you're also stacking might on yourself, right? It's a very strong skill. Just, you know, if you look at it, it's a very, very good skill. So this could certainly see some play, even in PvP as well, actually. Because again, being able to buff your allies is really good in that regard. But yeah, really good changes to Holo. A little bit changed with mech. And we'll kind of do it in two parts here, I guess. Actually, no, this is the only relevant change to mech, really. So, interesting change to Mechanist. Interesting change. So, combat attribute bonuses to your mech are now reduced by 50% if the engineer is more than 360 away from the mech for a certain amount of time. And that certain amount of time is 6 seconds. This is an interesting change because 360 is not very big. I'll actually just go ahead and demonstrate that now. This is 360. That radius there. So if you want to get value out of this mech, you're really going to have to micromanage it. Otherwise, you're going to do a lot of damage and a lot of boon uptime. And the goal with this change, I think, is twofold. It's to add a bit of a skill test to DPS mech, so you have to micromanage it. And also, the goal is to nerf heal mech. Because heal mech has a very peculiar quality about it, that it can be really far away from the group and just leave the mech there, and the mech can apply barrier, it can apply all the boons, right? All that kind of good stuff. So this means that you essentially get punished for moving away from the mech and going to do a mechanic. You have to get back as quick as possible, otherwise your group is essentially going to lose boon uptime and will, you know, lose value, right? Simple as that. It's a big nerf in PvP as well, by the way. Whoa, killing blow, honestly. But this change is a little bit interesting. And I have a slightly weird complaint here about this. I think the change actually makes a lot of sense because one of the strongest things about mech is this ability to function away from the group, where basically be in two places at the same time. That actually is a bit of a problem, and that's fair enough. I think that makes sense. The problem is that the mech AI is not very good. And my concern about this is actually that this might make mech a little annoying to play. Because the mech AI has a tendency to kind of just wander off into Narnia sometimes and just not... It can be a bit annoying to make it do what you want it to do. So that could be a potential issue that may come, but they may have to look at the way the AI is to give you more control over the mech so you can position it. You can do something like, hey, mech, stay, right? Make the mech stay in place and not move for a certain amount of time. Otherwise, it can kind of wander off and... yeah, it can be a bit of a pain. Maybe look at the way recall, so you can recall and dynamically deploy it a bit faster in PvE, for example, because I can actually see this leading to a little bit of frustration. But I actually think that the sentiment of the change makes sense. I think they've identified the issue correctly here, and they are now attempting to solve it, right? Which is good. So I'm going to say this is a positive change, but there are a few potential issues that might need to be looked at. With the way that the mech is actually controlled. And then some PvP buffs to Scrapper, actually. With hammer damage going up, bypass coating cooldown down, and medic gyro cooldown is also down. Yeah, Scrapper is one of those things that doesn't really see that much play in PvP. It kind of had a few meme builds that were kind of going about the place with, like, you can grenade people, you can do some troll stuff with, like, mega gyros and super speed and run around really fast and blow people up. Kind of a meme build, honestly. I'm not sure if this is gonna... I mean, it makes it better, right? But I'm not sure if this is really gonna make Scrapper a thing in PvP. You know, on one hand, I wish they would... Maybe they should buff Scrapper a bit in PvE, but it's already really strong. It's just that people don't play it. So, it maybe just needs a buff to kind of get it over the threshold where people try it out a little bit, but we'll see. This skill is very strong, by the way. Bypass Coating is a very nice ability. Specifically, this is actually an AoE stun break too. Which is really, really strong on a short cooldown, so watch out for that. And then finally, we have a few kind of general changes here. Box of nails on the... this is kind of a weird one. On the toolkit, right? You just, boom, throw those nails down. Bit of a weird skill, but now they've actually made it a kind of fun one. So if you immobilize a target... Oh, sorry, if you, say, you know, you slow a target, you cripple them, you get them with a chill or something like that, and then you, boom, you get them box of nails... then they'll actually get immobilized. Or if they're CC'd as well, if they're crowd controlled, then boom, they actually get immobilized. That's actually pretty nifty. That would be a nice thing you kind of blend into your kit when you're, you know, using all of your abilities on toolkit, which actually is an ability that does pop up sometimes in PvP, by the way. And this is kind of a combo enabler. You drop down your box of nails, then you bam, you whack them with the crowbar. So you can kind of magnet them in, and then boom, box of nails, crowbar. Ooh, you know, that's pretty juicy. There's definitely some potential there, particularly seeing as it has 2 ammo charges. So you can kind of combo this with itself, because it applies cripple, right? So you can cripple a target with some nails, and then boom, drop another, and drop more nails on them, and they'll be immobilized. Yeah, you can precast nails, okay? Magnet someone in, and then drop more nails on them, and then crowbar them. Let's go! What a combo. So yeah, that's actually a fun change. And again, don't sleep on this, because Tool Belt is actually really strong. And in particular, the Holosmith build that's seeing played right now in PvP actually does use Tool Belt. Sorry, Toolkit. Specifically the build that Floody was playing and got very far in the monthly automated tournament and really did a lot of work actually on Holo, was using Toolkit. So do not sleep on this. This is actually relevant for Holosmith, particularly with the other Holo buffs that come through. Because again, it was using abilities like Coolant Blast, which is now better and cleanses even more conditions, right? Now this might see some additional play with Hard Light Arena. We have a bit more, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? We have a bit more damage. Well, that's only in PvE, but you get the idea. The other Holo buffs might combine with this to actually make a really, really cool build. And this rifle change, I thought I'd just explain this, actually. So this is actually an animation cleanup. This is not a nerf to, say, Rifle Mechanist or a buff or anything. It's just a nothing. So basically, Rifle right now fires 2 projectiles. And they've basically just divided that into 2. Oh, right, they've just combined that into 1. So now you get 1 projectile on the rifle, right? And then you just throw a grenade after that. So instead of having like this kind of pew-pew, like ridiculous like machine gun, the animation's going to be a bit slower and look a little bit less unhinged. But the actual ability itself is identical, essentially. Because now the damage is the same, right? It's 0.3 times 2 plus 0.4, which is 1. And now it's changed to 0.4 plus 0.6 for 1, right? So the animation duration is the same, right? And the damage is the same. It's basically the same. And it doesn't even change the explosion count because, again, you get explosions on the grenade. It wasn't on the piercing projectile, right? So it's fine. It's all good. Yeah, I guess it changes pushing on Harvest Temple CM. Or, well, I guess Harvest Temple. But not super relevant, to be honest, overall. So there you go. Some cool changes. You know what? I think we will just do Ellie next, actually, because there's some fun stuff here with Ellie. There is actually some kind of cool stuff with Ellie. We've actually got to the top here, so we'll go to Ellie. Coming up next. This is one that I actually expected them to go on harder. I think I was expecting more. I actually was. I think they were very focused on the scepter changes, because they actually reworked a lot of scepter skills here. And I think that was where a lot of their focus went, as opposed to maybe targeting builds like DPS Weaver. Although those builds are acceptable, I think it is worth noting. I think there was a 39,000 DPS Condi Weaver benchmark posted very recently. So it's not like Ellie is not pumping. Like, Ellie's kind of pumping. Ellie's kind of slapping right now. Particularly seeing as we are actually getting, you know, a few kind of changes to Scepter that actually might help out. But anyway, that might actually help out a little bit. But I was expecting more. I was expecting a little bit more. So let's get into it. The big thing here is that Scepter has been changed. And they said this on stream. They want to focus Scepter to be a very aggressive, damage-dealing weapon in all games. To give it that identity as the big damage weapon. And I think this actually makes a lot of sense for multiple reasons. One, this is a great weapon to have that on because it's ranged. So that means that Elementalist DPS builds, if they all end up using Scepter, that's super fun because it means you can be at range, which kind of allows you to be more survivable and, you know, handle mechanics a bit better, which is, I think, a very common complaint about Elementalist. And I think the problem with Ellie is that weapons are almost a bit mushy, right? Like, weapons are quite hybridy a lot of the time, which I think is fine, given the nature of Elementalist, but I think that this is actually causing a few problems in PvE, because it means that weapons have to be balanced around the fact that they have hybrid effects on them, which essentially means they have to be weaker because they pay the hybrid tax, right? Which is something that ArenaNet want to do. They want things to have trade-offs, all this kind of stuff. So, good news. Scepter now does big damage and has a few usability improvements too. Dragon's Tooth, this one is really fun. It kind of you can cast it on a target and it follows them around and then drops on them. That's really going to help in PvP actually. It's going to kind of force a dodge out of a target. That actually might have to get reverted. Because that is a very scary mechanic to have, that something will just follow you wherever you go and you don't need to aim it. That's actually pretty scary. That is actually very, very scary. And Phoenix, now you gain, you inflict an additional stack of burning against targets that are already burning. Basically the same, right? This essentially means that you kind of combo these skills together. That's the other theme here. It's actually really fun, actually, is that you now have this pretty cool combo element on all of these Scepter skills, like Shadowstone combos into Water Trident, Lightning Strike combos into Blinding Flash now, right? I think that's really, really cool, actually. Very, very fun, actually. And it's the same thing here with the Rock Throw and Dust Devil. That's kind of fun. But let's kind of get into it. So, Phoenix, you get an extra stack of burning against targets that are already burning, reduce burning stacks from 2 to 1 in PvE. In other words, it's the same as long as the target's always burning, which is always, so it's basically the same. There you go. Dragon's Tooth follows you around. Ice Shards aftercast is down, so you can just get more auto attacks off. Shadowstone is now very much like the Guild Wars 1 version of Shadowstone, where it actually inflicts damage right at the start, not at the end, making it much more consistent. So you cast it, boom, it explodes. Then a few seconds later, it explodes again. That's actually a very, very nice usability increase, particularly in PvP. Kind of landing that is going to be a little bit better. It also chills instead of applying vulnerability now, which is important because Water Trident now is not a ground targeted ability. You fire projectiles at the target and up to 2 nearby enemies. It doesn't heal allies and it heals the caster, so you sustain yourself with it, and it does more damage against chilled enemies. In other words, you combo it with Shadowstone. And you have an ammo count now of 2. And the power coefficient is 1.6 in PvE and 1.25 in PvP and World vs. World. Again, we're really focusing on this damaging element. And these changes, I think, are really aimed to enable Fresh Air Ellie. This means that Fresh Air Ellie is kind of going to pump with cleave damage a lot, right? And have a better time sustaining itself as well when you hit more enemies. And you know what's really funny? This, if I recall correctly, is actually the original implementation of this skill, I think. Or very similar to it. Oh no, not quite actually. Yeah, I found the image right now. Actually, here is the original Water Trident showcase here for Elementalist for the original Guild Wars 2. It's, no, not quite. It is a targeted ability, so it kind of mirrors that functionality a little bit. But yeah, look, it used to knock back. Holy shit. That would have been quite the skill. But anyway, you can see that's the original Water Trident. But yeah, so now it's a targeted ability. And it does a lot of damage, actually. A lot of damage. And you can heal yourself too. So that's kind of fun. Now, I will say that you don't heal allies with this. This actually kind of sucks for a lot of heal builds in PvE. And, you know, I'm sure they'll add that back somewhere else, maybe on Dagger. Maybe they'll buff Staff a little bit at some point. That kind of feels bad, because Trident was really fun on on heal Ellie and on a hybrid Ellie, like a Celestial Ellie build, was a really fun thing. And it will still be good, right? In fact, you'll even sustain yourself even more with this, right? You can self-heal a lot with Water Trident now, and you have a bit more damage, which is kind of cool. But I will definitely miss that. I'll definitely miss the Scepter Ellie heal playstyle, because that was actually pretty enjoyable. But that's okay. That is okay. Lightning Strike and Blinding Flash, these skills are now AoE. This is very strong, very nice for PvP. Because again, you get your more cleave damage, which is great for cleaving down states or nuking multiple enemies with your fresher Elementalist. Because again, you hit 2 nearby enemies and you get vulnerability. The vulnerability from Shadowstone is now on Lightning Strike. And Blinding Flash is now an area blind, and you get weakness on vulnerable foes. See how it combos together? You apply Vul with Lightning Strike, and then boom, you blind them. And also apply weakness too. So it has this really fun combo style element, which really leans into the fresh air Elementalist playstyle in PvP. And the same thing here with Rock Barrier and Hurl. And again, looking at that sustain, better self-sustain with Water Trident. And now check this out. When you use it, you get Barrier and Resistance. It was a decent duration too. I believe it was 4 seconds of resistance in PvP and around 2,000 Barrier. That's pretty damn good, especially as you get a bit of toughness with that as well. And your rock projectiles go way faster. And of course, Dust Devil is now a ground-targeted blind, making it much easier to land. And okay, you can cripple enemies that are bleeding, that you maybe landed with your throwing your rocks at people, right? Pretty cool stuff. So yeah, looks like they want to enable this fresher Elementalist playstyle in PvP. Is it going to be there with this patch? I could definitely see it coming back in ranked. In competitive play, builds like that are always going to struggle because you typically play kind of pretty tanky stuff there, and you can also eliminate squishy glass cannons pretty easily in competitive play. You're going to hunt it down with your Rev, hunt it down with your Thief, which might make it a little bit difficult to work, but I can definitely see this build seeing a lot more prevalence in ranked after all these changes, because I think this really helps, actually. With making Fresh Air Elementalist, which I think is a playstyle a lot of people like, a lot more playable and more powerful and able to survive bitter, because that was its problem, right? Like, it's a very squishy build. Even though you do play, like, Scepter Focus and you have some invulnerability and so on, you have a few defensive cooldowns that you can use, you're still very squishy on any kind of glass cannon build, right? It's like, you know, like any kind of, like, burst Chronomancer build. Well, not with Distortion, I guess, but you get the idea, right? A lot of glass cannon builds are very squishy. And this tries to address this. And a few more changes here. We see that Earthshield got nerfed. Finally, this, to be honest, this ability just isn't that much fun. I hate to say it, I'm just going to say it, guys. Earthshield has had this coming for a long time. It's a really frustrating ability to play against, I think, in PvP. It was used by every Ellie build, and this does a lot to change Ellie in the meta. Catalyst and Tempest, both amazing right now. And nerfing Earthshield really helps with this. Basically, having another invuln on more or less a 30-second cooldown was just so annoying to deal with, right? It was you had a limited amount of time where you had to interact with the Elementalists, because they would just be chaining Obsidian Flesh with Fortify, another Earthshield, they're blocking you, right? They've got Shocking Aura up. This typically made a lot of Ellie builds feel a bit unfun to play into, which really wasn't that good. So less barrier now on Tectonic Shift, which is the kind of like whenever you block stuff. Well, it's just like it's like a special effect that you get when using certain abilities that gives you a bit of pulsing barrier. So this is a really good change. Evasive Arcana bug got fixed. Thumbs up. You love to see that. Storm Soul as well. Actually, oh, I forgot. This isn't in the notes, I don't think, but they actually said this on stream. Engineers, if you're still listening, Healing Turret bug is fixed. So when you explode your turret, it will always get the water field now. Because the water field is a bit weird. It would like have a delay on it. So if you insta-exploded it, it wouldn't appear, wouldn't work. Sometimes, if you did it too quickly. They actually fixed it. Oh, what a good change. Yes. Yes. What a good change. That's such an annoying thing to play on a great ability too. But there you go. While we're on bug fixes, we're throwing that one in as well. Awesome change. God, they fixed that one. And we see the Storm Soul thing here as well, that this is now active all the time, which is actually pretty nifty, by the way. If you are, this isn't actually, is that really that good? Because if you're playing Elementalist and you're playing a DPS build, you take Raging Storm. Well, Raging Storm is 180 ferocity versus a 10% mod. I guess you're actually a bit happier. Yeah. I think you're actually a bit happy with the 10% modifier, I guess. Because that's pretty good. 180 ferocity versus 10% damage mod. 10% damage mod should be better there, right? Yeah. Yeah, should be better. Yeah, it's definitely better. Because it stacks all the other ones as well. Alright. Well, that's not too bad, is it? So look, there's your Power Weaver buff. Oh. Tempest is better in War of the Sword because, again, Scrapper didn't get full nerfed because the design change stayed the same, so Scrapper kind of stayed alive, so making Tempest a little bit better. Great. And then a few buffs to Weaver, the Duelist build in PvP here. Twin Strike and Flame Uprising now have more burning, and Shearing Edge has more bleeding. So you have chill and also bleeding. This is pretty important because I think one of the weaknesses of Weaver was that it primarily applies one condi a lot of the time. And any build that applies one condi is a bit of a gimmick. There are a few builds that can work like this with, you know, you can, you know, like burn DH, like burn Guardian and so on, stuff like that. So kind of throwing in an extra condi there, I think will actually kind of help it out. You know, it's got a bit of bleeding in there. You can apply vulnerability and so on. Like, Primordial Stance really helps with this to cover up those condi, so it's harder to get rid of that really dangerous burning, on Fireweaver. So I think this will actually just give it a bit of a nudge. Although, I struggle to see it compete with Catalyst. Catalyst is a bit of a monster right now. Although, having said that, there was a slight tune down to Catalyst here. Basically, so Catalyst had this really weird interaction where with other Ellies, I guess, a lot of the time, but anything that can, like, blast a field to apply an aura, I guess. But basically, whenever you'd get an aura, even if you didn't apply it to you, say if a Tempest aura shed, you'd gain stability, you'd get your damage reduction, you get your extra damage, you get your empowering aura, blah, 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 blah. You'd get all those effects for another Ellie applying that to you, right? And this is a slight tweak here that means that you don't have quite as much synergy here by having another Elementalist. Not the end of the universe, as Catalyst has plenty of aura application on its own. And of course, Catalyst is a duelist, right? It is going to be doing a lot of 1v1s a lot of the time. So this is like just a slight kind of tone down here. Maybe they were just worried about the design of this potentially becoming problematic. But yeah, just a slight tone down with the way that these traits actually function. But Catalyst isn't really super upset about this. Okay. And let's have a look at this. Flame Wheel? Ooh. Oh, they did not say about this on the stream. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. Yeah. These skills now strike enemies once per second instead of using a projectile. Increase power coefficient from 0.001 to 0.28. That is really good. Hang on. So, okay. So this means that Catalyst actually gets a lot more damage in PvE. A lot more damage. This will apply to the Boon build, and the full DPS build. Okay. That is juicy. And you also get an extra 1% damage from empowering auras, which I think adds up to another 5% damage overall, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's correct. So 5% damage, and we also get this. Oh, I was wrong. Maybe they did go quite hard on Ellie, actually. That's going to be powerful. That is going to be pretty powerful. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. If the base damage is crap, then it doesn't matter, then the coverage is button on. Ah, great opportunity to bring something up. Base damage does not exist in Guild Wars 2. Yeah, sounds weird, right? But it's true. There is no such thing as base damage. There is with condis, but not with power. Abilities do not have base damage. They are entirely based off power, nothing else. Think about it. Think about it if you don't believe me. When's the base damage? No, they don't. No. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Weapon skills do not have a base damage. Weapon is added power? No. Weapon damage is multiplied by power. No, 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 no. Ooh, we have to do maths. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. This is the important thing here. Notice how there is no adding in damage done. There is no adding here. There's no base plus weapon strength. It is all multiplied. So it does not matter. Multiplying, if you do this ability goes from, wait, that's like a 2,500 increase. I like that. No, it's not. That is a 250 times buff to this ability. It does 250 times more damage now. Pretty juicy. But yeah, no, this is how damage works. There is no base damage. It is only multiplicative. There is no addition going on there. 250 times buff, guys. Pretty good. I like it. Yes, 2,500%, right? No, it's not. Isn't that 25,000%? Yeah, it is. 25,000. Look, guys, seriously, Elementalist mates, are you happy? You just got a 25,000% buff. I like that. That's big. That is big. That's pog. Yeah, yeah. Okay. But yeah, okay, we'll kind of cut to the chase here. This means that Power Catalyst is gonna pump. Actually, this is gonna blast a bit, right? We've got a 5% mod, which we have to trade for Spectacular Sphere. Ooh, nice design here. This is good. And look at this, guys. Spectacular Sphere. We don't get damage reduction on our boom build anymore. And Earth Sphere grants Aegis. Now, this sounds good on paper, but honestly, I think this is maybe a little bit better in PvE. Yes, it is. Because Aegis is usually better than... I kind of like Resistance. Resistance is really nice sometimes, right? When there's like slows and stuff and there's chill about the place, Resistance is really nice. And the problem with this is that it's hard to use Earth Sphere reactively. A lot of the time you use your spheres on Catalyst as part of your DPS rotation. And having to, 1, be in Earth, 2, have your sphere off cooldown, and have energy for it, it's a little awkward, to be honest, to make that work. It's a little bit tricky. And this is PvP only, guys. You still have resistance in PvP. So, yeah. In PvP, you still have resistance on this. But, yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We shall see. Yeah, I mean, some people are saying that you won't use Earth Shield. Use Earth Shield after the patch. If that's the case and you can use it reactive, that would actually be pretty cool. Maybe you lose energy generation. You don't have as much energy generation more because the projectiles hit less. I guess that kind of makes sense. About that, because you're hitting every second as opposed to the projectiles kind of spinning around really quickly, I guess. That might be what's going on here. Although my impression of this is that they're all individual pulses, so you actually might get a lot of energy from this, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see how this actually plays out. But yeah, it might be like a perma Aegis. Okay. That's actually pretty damn good, to be honest, if you're in a group situation. I think this might... Is this enough? A 10% damage buff, another 5%, a big buff on all of the pulsing AoEs. I think I'm going to maybe actually be very... I'm going to speak very optimistically about DPS Boon Catalyst. I think, yes. I'm actually going to give this seal of approval. This build seems... really strong. That's an Aegis every 15 with Alacrity every 12 seconds. Aegis every 12 seconds, potentially. With the Earth Sphere. Massive damage buffs across the board. Really good boon axes. Because look, guys. Here's Guild Wars 2 skills. Look at this trait, lads. We've got Might, Vigor, Quickness, Aegis now on that ability. And then we have more Might on our Sphere. We have Resolution here. We have Quickness and Fury here. Your Protection. This is a pretty good kind of... It's like Herald. It's a bit like Herald, in a way, to an extent. I can really see that seeing play once players get their hands on that and doing some serious damage, actually. I like it. I think that is value. This does appear to maybe be enough. I guess I was wrong. Well, you know what? This is not my fault. I think at the start of this segment, I said I was expecting to go harder on Ellie. I think what I meant was I expected them to go harder on Weaver. Also, they didn't mention all these changes in their stream, so I didn't know that they were juicing the hell out of this. Maybe I just wasn't listening. That's also possible. Watch out for that. You can go watch the stream and tell me that I wasn't listening. That might happen. But anyway, that's not the point. I think the only thing that's really missing here is changing the way Alacrity is applied on Tempest, because that's still pretty depressing, to be honest, and maybe like a few changes to Weaver. And, well, the other really big thing here is that Elementalist, I think, still does lack group utility, particularly on its utility skills. I'd really like to see that addressed down the line, giving it some group support and actual utility on utility skills, as opposed to just using all of its utility skills for damage. I think that would actually be really, really good. That's probably like the... well, maybe next time, right? Maybe next time. We'll see. We shall see. But I like it. I like this a lot. Some good changes to Ellie, actually. I'm surprised. That's what happens when you don't listen to the stream, guys. You should always listen to the stream so you're not surprised. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move on. I think some of these are going to be a little bit quicker. I kind of went over like the really juicy stuff there, I think, a lot of the time. But here we go. Let's take a look at this. Mesmer. And not the buffs I was expecting, actually. Chrono buffs. Sword auto attack. Again, this is big, right? 1.5 power coefficient on an auto attack is delicious, especially seeing as all the auto attacks are up. So chrono damage, that's quickness chrono, and DPS chrono up a lot. Chrono Phantasma, damage up again for pure DPS Chronomancer. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Well of Calamity, another damage utility skill, damage up. Right, power coefficient of initial strikes from 0.5 to 1.0. Double damage on Well of Calamity. Yeah, Chrono is kind of gonna slap. I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be some pretty serious DPS. Alright, this is gonna be some serious DPS. No more precision for poor old Chrono, so I hope you like Assassin's Gear, I guess. Keep enjoying that. Have fun. I was actually expecting them to address Boon Chronomancer a bit more, the Inspiration trait line, but I guess not this time, just simply looking at the DPS quickness build, potentially. That build is honestly pretty good, actually. You know, it does actually see play in high-level groups and so on, so it's not a bad build by any stretch of the imagination. I do think it needs a few functionality tweaks, maybe looking at the protection uptime on shield, for example. Maybe changing the duration a little bit so it doesn't have to, you know, it's not so close to the wire in terms of applying quickness. That kind of stuff. So a few usability changes, in addition to some more crit chance, will be pretty nice there. And yeah, Chrono also gets toned down a little bit in PvP. It kind of turned into a bit of a monster, actually, with the distortion being added back to it. It was a bit monstrous, actually, as it turns out. Performed very well in the recent monthly Ultimate Tournament. And to try and address that, we see that Continuum Split, the duration is actually going down a fair bit, down from 6 seconds to 4 seconds, meaning that you don't have this insane cooldown reset, and also kind of immortality as well. Bear in mind, guys, in Continuum Split, if you die, you don't actually die, you simply revert immediately. So this is actually not just an offensive tool for getting in more abilities, it was also an amazing defensive tool as well. You could double distort, you could actually die and basically get your health and endurance back, essentially, and you know, you wouldn't be defeated, right? All that kind of stuff. So this is a very, very powerful tool, you know, all over, right? But that's how it is. That is how it is. And there it is. I think that will actually really help balancing it and kind of keeping Chrono in check. I think it's good to have, it's, you know, it's always good to see, like, all classes in the meta, and Chrono coming back was Mesmer's re-entry into high-level PvP. But you don't want it to be, like, super oppressive and really horrible, right? But that's the way it is. And this is a slightly interesting change here with Mirage. So, Chaos Vortex. Clones using this skill will now grant the same boons in an area of effect around the Mesmer instead of around the clones themselves. Reduce the alacrity duration from 2.5 to 1 second. Reduce might stacks from 8 to 2. So, what is this? Because you might go, well, what's the point in this change? Don't you do that anyway? Well, kind of. This, I think, is actually specifically targeting Stacks Mirage, and Stacks Mirage is Staff Axe Mirage. And this is a very peculiar build, because what you would do is you'd spawn 3 Axe clones, which hit like an absolute truck, because they do loads of torment damage when you get Infinite Horizon, and you yourself would use the Staff Ambush, and this would give 25 might, or a lot of might uptime, and alacrity. So what they've done here is they've said, well, you're going to have to choose. You can't do Giga Damage and Alacrity. You're going to have to say, well, I want to do Alacrity or Giga Damage. So in other words, the full DPS Mirage builds are very much intact here, and the full Alacrity builds are, in fact, a little bit better. If you notice here, the Alacrity duration here is 1 second, but this is on every clone. So if you have 3 clones up, this is what, 4 seconds of alacrity, right? 1 plus 3 for all of your clones. And then, of course, 2 times 4 for 8 stacks of might. So it's actually a lot better, actually, for staff. So the staff build is going to, well, potentially need less boon duration to function correctly and just have more reliable uptime with that. Yeah. Well, no. We'll grant the same boons in an area of it around the Mesmer instead of around the clones themselves. So it's always around you. It just doubles up, right? It doubles up. So yeah, this actually is just a straight up buff to the staff build. But again, I think this is just a target. It's a targeted nerf to deal with stacks, because this was a kind of a weird build that was performing in very high level play quite abnormally. It's a very strong build, kind of a bit of a remnant of Path of Fire, really, a bit like Righteous Rebel Renegade. It was kind of like a half Alack build almost in some sense. But yeah, there you go. There you go. How about that? We don't lose the might. You just get it. You need to have 3 clones up. You need to have 3 clones up. So this is more of like a high-level tuning here. It probably doesn't really affect normal play that much whatsoever. There weren't that many people playing this build, to be honest. Yeah. And you know what's missing? Virtuoso. Virtuoso. This actually does confuse me, because Virtuoso in PvE is absolutely broken now that it has distortion. It has something like, I think it's like 38k DPS. Boon Strip, amazing utility with the mantra for AoE stability at this point. With double charges, pretty damn good on that, like in a massive radius. You have Portal, you can do Blink, you're ranged, you have a block, you have a distort. You are a monster, right? Yeah, you have Focus as well if you need that. You are a bit of a beast, actually. So I'm surprised I didn't get toned down a little bit. But, you know, I guess you can't do everything in one go. Virtuosos, enjoy your God mode for a little bit longer, okay? Enjoy it before CMC gets to you. Ha, 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 ha. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, still Virtuoso, super strong. But yeah, cool to Chrono. I think I'd like to see some changes to Chaos and Inspiration, so the kind of tank boon Chrono comes back rather than this super aggressive build. Because, look, let's be honest here. Super aggressive boon builds see play at high level, but typically not so much at low level. Sorry, I shouldn't say low level. I should say at entry level, at pug level. Pugs are not going to play super hyper aggressive builds. They're always going to play the more defensive options that have a bit more sustain and a bit more support. And right now, Necromancer is a pretty damn aggressive support. Right, it has a lot of damage. It has it's quite a tight rotation to execute with low boon duration to get mass damage. It's very utilitarian. It's very speed running focused almost. So I think that shoring up the more defensive supports for classes would actually be a really good change to actually let Chrono see a bit more play back into the meta. I think this change will make Alack Mirage a lot easier to play, so I think Alack Mirage will see more play, which is nice, I guess. Particularly seeing as, you know, Mirage still has great utility. It's amazingly strong in terms of the utility it can bring to the table and its own durability too. Quite possibly one of the best builds for kind of playing just general open world content in the game, maybe the best. It's kind of like close between that and Untamed in my opinion. I'm a little bit biased towards Untamed because I really enjoy Untamed, but Mirage is super strong as well. Amazing for that type of content. But yeah, that's what we have for Mesmer. Necromancer. Let's just cut to the chase. Come on. Reaper buffs. Here we go. Chilling Nova. Cooldown from 8 to 3 seconds. This is basically whenever you crit against a chilled foe, you get a little explosion. This actually hits pretty hard, by the way, just so everyone's aware of that. It's a pretty juicy skill. So this is a significant change. You're going to get probably a good, I don't know, probably like a few hundred extra DPS from that, which might not sound a lot, but it still makes sense. Nightfall. Just a 20% cooldown reduction on a pretty powerful skill. Does a lot of damage, actually. That's going to be a solid DPS increase. Dust Strike, which is, again, in the auto-attack chain. Damage goes up to 1.2. That is relevant. And Chilling Strike. This is a fun one. It reduces the recharge of Gravedigger. I believe it was 2 seconds. I think. when you strike an enemy. So this basically means that you can use your Gravedigger more above 50% health, leading to more damage, right? Because it means you can get more Gravediggers, and that's going to give you a DPS increase. Executioner's Scythe finally actually does some damage with a 5.0 damage coefficient against targets below 25%. That is going to absolutely hit like a truck when you are against a low target there. Pretty fun stuff there. And Death Charge does more damage as well. The initial power coefficient of the initial strikes is 0.125 to 0.25. I almost have a bit of a feeling this ends up making it a DPS increase to use, actually. I'm not sure, though. I think it hits like 8 times, so you get some decent damage out of that. Is it better than auto-attacking? Oh, no, auto-attacks are pretty good, to be honest. It might be. I don't know. So this could be another DPS increase here as well. But this actually is pretty cool. I think these changes are a good start on Reaper. Reaper probably needs a little bit more than this, but I think this definitely makes it a lot more competitive as a damage dealer. Particularly seeing as it does have some pretty cool stuff. It has a lot of area of effect damage, has great crowd control, and it also has boon removal too. Pretty good. Not too bad, not too bad. Something a good start for Reaper. I'd like to see a bit more. Yeah, and Chilling Nova, it's kind of good for Condi Reaper, right? Because now you get the bleeding even more frequently. I wonder if that was the goal. It might well have been. Because Condi Reaper? I mean, that's not really a build that anyone plays. But you know what? For the one player who plays it, you can enjoy that. There it is. Nice, 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 nice. Oh, and there was another extra change here that helps Reaper out too with Soul Barbs. So Soul Barbs, the duration is now up to 15 seconds in PvE only. Now, you might go, well, what does this do? Well, Soul Barbs means whenever you enter or exit Shroud, you just deal more damage. 10% more damage across the board. Now, this is really nice for Reaper, because in Reaper, you wouldn't necessarily have this buff up all the time. This actually should... Okay... This should actually push it to the point where you more or less have permanent Soul Barbs uptime on Power Reaper as well. And that's really going to help out there. Just giving you that consistent damage modifier throughout the entire fight will certainly improve the numbers of Reaper just a little bit there as well. So pretty good stuff there overall. But yeah, could definitely do with a little bit more for the Power Reaper builds out there. For the Power Reaper fans all over the place. And then a few more other changes here for PvP. Corrupt Boon. This skill is kind of scary now. Unblockable 5 Boon Corrupt. It's got a 30-second cooldown. Of course, you could reduce that with Master of Corruptions if you wanted to, although you're much more likely to run Path of Corruption. But still, that is a pretty juicy skill. 5 boons unblockably corrupted. That's the kind of ability that is a bit scary when you're playing against it. You're really going to have to watch out for that quite short animation, otherwise you're going to get absolutely deleted by a Necromancer. Spectral Armor is actually having a reduced cooldown. That probably actually ends up working out a little bit better because you get to use it a lot more. You can stun break more frequently using using Spectral Armor instead of having a relatively long stun break. Then they're trying to maybe help Necro out a little bit. Necro has fallen out of favor a lot in PvP right now. It sees a bit of play. Core Necro, but Harbinger sadly got the hammer. It's gone. Signet of Spite and Signet of the Locust. Also getting a bit better in PvP and World versus World. Now, this is a very unusual ability because even though it looks like, oh wait, this is a lot of Condis, right? You actually ran this on Power Necro, like Core Power Necro and various other Power Necro builds. Because you'd kind of... What you do is you unleash this on your opponent and they get blinded, they're crippled, they're a weakness, they have vulnerability, and then you just smash them with your Shroud. You'd kind of like, boom, you just land that, and it's like a big cooldown to land. So this actually kind of helps that out a little bit with any kind of like Power Necromancer build that might want to use Signet of Spite to just zap people with it. I think you can also take the Signet trait there, so you even get the extra power while you're in Shroud for even more DPS. So there's some potential options there with this, but the thing is about Necro is in a weird spot right now in PvP. If you don't have like Fleshworm and Spectral Walk, you're kind of dead. Because Necro's weakness is always that it's been kind of slow and kind of fat. And if you don't have those mobility skills, you just get locked down and you die. Pretty much. So it's really hard to actually... It's difficult to fit all of these skills into your build. I could see Corrupt Boon getting in there, because that is a bit of a monster right? Corrupt Boon is very good. And Spectral Armor does already see play, actually, so that's not going to change. So you'll probably see these two abilities here, and I think Signet of Spite will see some play as well with this stuff. So I can definitely see this kind of getting in there a little bit, and maybe Signet of Spite a bit more even, because of that lower cooldown. But yeah, Necro utility skills are very competitive in PvP. So we'll have to see what ends up seeing play there. Finally, a world versus world change here with Scourge is the following boon applications in Thief Corrupt. This basically steals boons from enemies when you corrupt or remove them, basically. This trait is pretty busted in World vs. World, and they just hit it pretty hard. Might stacks from 3 to 1, Prot and Resolution, 2 seconds, duration halved, Regen, duration halved, Stability, 1 stack for 3 seconds, absolute nuke there, Vigor, down to 3 seconds as well. Honestly, they even mentioned this on the stream, actually. They even talked about this. They're probably going to redesign this trait at some point. And I actually kind of agree with that. It's a really cool idea when you think about it, but the design is unbelievably problematic, to be honest. It's almost impossible to balance because of how good this effect really is. It's very much like Purity of Purpose on Engineer, except it's almost like worse because you're dealing with enemies, you're stealing boons as well. It's almost like even stronger than that. This was a beast mode trait for Scourge. And this is a big nerf to Scourge in World vs. World, to be honest, right? Like that ability to self-sustain and apply stability to yourself, apply boons to yourself, like, you know, have might, have protection all the time, have vigor all the time, was really, really strong. So Scourge definitely getting a little bit of the hammer there. Is this the time for other builds to replace Scourge? Honestly, maybe not. I mean, Scourge is still pretty damn good, right? Barrier is pretty good. Range boon corruption is pretty good. But, you know, Reaper is there. You know, break out the Reaper there too, you know, it's good. Maybe a bit of Spellbreaker. Maybe some Untamed, you know, say. Untamed memes. You love to see it. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. No Harbinger buffs for PvE. Not much to Harbinger in general, actually. I'm kind of surprised, because Harbinger did get a little bit noodled in PvP. I mean, Harbinger is alright in PvE. It's not one of those specs that I think is in, like, dire need of assistance. It's like a top DPS quickness provider. How bad can it be? Again, you know, the problem with Harbinger is more like what it is rather than how strong it is. Because, again, builds like Harbinger just aren't going to see that much play in Pugs. Reason being? Simple. Because that type of build isn't very useful to a Pug group. But it's still pretty strong, right? Okay. Ranger. Ranger. I like I have the wrong icon for Chomp here. I just love... It's just so funny to me. Like, imagine this, guys. Imagine being a wizard. And you can cast fire and air and water and earth. Or you're a Mesmer and you summon illusions. Or, you know, you are a thief using the power of shadow magic to zap your opponents. And then a ranger just chomps you and you die. Right? That is really, really funny. The Drake walks up to you, chomps you, and it's over. You know, the tail swipe happens, and you're dead. It's over. Yeah. But anyway. They nerfed Untamed a little bit. And Untamed is kind of weird. In PvP, I don't know what you do with it. Because Untamed, I'm not sure that the problem is that it's too strong. Because Untamed is very strong. It's very powerful. But it's more like the way it does what it does can be really, really annoying. The fact that it can port onto you and then blast you with the pet, right? You know, you can get tail swiped out of nowhere. You just get boom, hilt bashed out of nowhere, immediately into a maul combo, right? It is very punishing to play against Untamed. If you don't dodge some of these key abilities, you get farmed immediately. With how strong Untamed is. That's kind of the problem with Untamed right now, or I guess where you would describe the problem if there was to be a problem, rather than how strong it is as such, because I'm not sure if it actually is overpowered. It's definitely very powerful. but I wonder if it would see play an absolute high level. I'm not totally sure that it would. I think longbow is kind of annoying. I think longbow probably hits a bit too hard. The auto attacks will absolutely crunch you if you get hit by that. So I think that can be really tough to deal with, especially if you're a newer player. So I think Untamed's a bit difficult to handle, but removing damage from the pet, that kind of passive damage, definitely is a good approach to this as well. And again, just a slight buff to Predator's Onslaught. Now you just always have this trait against Defiant foes. It's worth noting that you kind of already had this on Ranger because it also applied to movement impaired foes. So yeah, and that's pretty common, right? Druid getting buffed in World vs. World. Again, similar to Tempest. The devs want to nudge Druid and Tempest to be in that Scrapper role, to kind of overtake Scrapper. Again, the design change to Scrapper didn't go through, and that limited the meta fluidity in World vs. World, so that's the goal here as well. Ancient Seeds. Oh, ha! So you could actually kind of get Colony Druid, maybe? Colony Druid in PvE? You know? Yeah, maybe. Maybe not, who knows? I mean, that's a decent chunk of bleeding on a fairly short cooldown. That actually, yeah, that's not insubstantial. And the sad thing about this is that Grace of the Land still only gives 1 stack of Might on Druid. I think I'd actually like to see them maybe put Alacrity on Grace of the Land and take it away from Nature Magic, because I think one of Druid's big problems right now is that you have to kind of spam those spirits and teleport there, which is super annoying and not that much fun. I think just making Druid just flat out give Alacrity on Grace of the Land somehow, and then maybe giving Untamed Quickness or something like that, AoE Group Quickness, or giving Soul Beast some kind of AoE boon support would be a better way to do it, because right now the Spirit gameplay, honestly, it isn't fun. So I think that would be a good rework to see down the line, because I don't think... You're kind of seeing a bit of a similar thing on Warrior, honestly. Quickness on Warrior, a little bit questionable, causing a few balance issues with Bladesworn, actually, but that's for another time, perhaps. But yep, this is some good stuff. Is Scrapper going to be replaced by Druid or Tempest? I mean, probably not. And on Untamed. Untamed fans, I have bad news for you. Our time is running out. Our time is running out. It was said on stream that Fervent Force will probably get reworked in the future. Oh. Oh. Ah. No. Well, okay, fair enough. It's kind of a broken trait. In fact, it is a broken trait. It is disgusting. The amount of stuff you can enable with this, like ridiculous CC combos, incredible self-buffing, absurd amounts of damage reduction all the time. It's a bit busted, not gonna lie, in PvE, so it makes sense. And here's the thing. This is the important thing. Let me put it to you like this, and I think everyone will feel a bit better about this. Right now, Untamed is not the elite specialization in PvE. Right now in PvE, Fervent Force is the elite specialization. You're not playing Untamed, you're playing Fervent Force. And that's not what we want, is it, right? We don't actually want that. We want Untamed to have this identity. We want Untamed to have this gameplay that's exciting and fun to play and powerful. Not just one trait, right? So I get it. I understand where they're coming from here, and it makes sense. That they want to address this, because it is a problem. And ultimately, as long as Fervent Force exists, Untamed must be balanced around it, right? It will always have to be kind of weaker because of how strong that trait is. So it's understandable that this is the approach that's being taken here. And in general, a few improvements to Untamed Hammer. I think some of this is for PvP. I think they want to maybe push the Duelist type of Untamed. So giving, Wild Swing, Barrier, for example. You now get a protection if you have the, if you have Restorative Strikes. You now gain protection when you go, when you Unleash. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah. Stuff like that. I think you have some more, I think you have some protection on a weapon skill as well somewhere, I think. Am I crazy? Yes, here we go. This skill now grants protection to the user. So when you have this Savage Shockwave ability, this Unleashed ability here, boom, you now get protection as well. Pretty good, right? You have these cooldown reactions across the board in PvP and World vs. World, because again, the goal here is to kind of promote this Hammer Duelist build, I think, as opposed to kind of the Roman Nuka build. I think this might be trying to steer it away from that type of gameplay, because again, as I previously mentioned, it's almost a little bit unhealthy with how Untamed plays out in PvP right now. So moving it more towards that Duelist role, kind of like that Bruiser style thing, or at least kind of taking some of the power away from the Roma into the Bruiser, might kind of make it a little bit healthier, a little bit more interactive to play against. So that kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense for a little bit. So some big hammer buffs across the board. Will this be enough for hammer to see play? Honestly, I'm not totally convinced, actually. I think people messed around with it a long time ago. I guess it depends on the numbers here, on the protection and the barrier here. So this could end up being really strong and really tanky and really durable, but we'll see. I think it will certainly be messed around with, but it's a little bit too early to say how good it's really going to be there as well. And in general, some PvE buffs too. Basically, all of your skills that apply against, disabled enemies, crowd-controlled enemies, boom. Well, now that also works just against defiant enemies, making power untamed just a fair bit, just untamed a fair bit better in just general PvE, right? So your skills will actually activate as you want them to in PvE. And yeah, of course, this also helps in World vs. World, because if you were going to use a weapon in World vs. World, you'd probably use Hammer, right? It's an AoE weapon, 5 targets, it's got big CC on it, it's got big immobilizers, big cleave, so potentially some Untamed play in World vs. World in kind of a Zerg, because I think they want to make that Zerg build with Druid and Untamed being these big things. Maybe a bit of Soul Beast thrown in there too. Could also be pretty damn fun. Fun thing with the heal skill too, by the way, check this out. It doesn't prevent lethal damage, keeping you at 1 HP. You just are invulnerable. You just have invulnerability for a few seconds. I think this could be insanely abusive with Fervent Force right now in PvE, because this lasts for 3 seconds, has a 24-second cooldown with Alacrity, so if you proc a bunch of Fervent Forces, you can kind of just go invulnerable. So there might be some unhinged gameplay that could pop up with that. Maybe like Perilous Gift combined with some insane shit like Signet of Stone, the Signet of Stone trait in Marksmanship, right? That gives you, when you use your elite skill, you get a Signet of Stone on your elite. You have Signet of Stone on your bar, Perilous Gift on your bar. I actually think that there's some really fucking weird shit that could happen with this. Just, maybe you never die. Maybe you're actually invulnerable. That could happen. And a bit more damage on Ferocious Symbiosis, just another 5% damage, right, on the power build. So just all-round buffs here too. And a bit more damage on Debilitating Blows. So now you get poison when you're unleashed, when you land a CC instead of weakness. Sorry, poison instead of vulnerability and slow instead of weakness in PvE. This is to make the Condis a bit rarer in PvE, so it's kind of like a more valuable trait. I think this is actually kind of fun. It's a bit of an interesting one. You use this trait to stack a lot of vulnerability solo, but I think you can probably still do it, actually, with stuff like Whirling Defense and sending the birds out to peck people and so on. You still have a good chunk of vulnerabilities. It's probably not the end of the world, but you'll certainly have to kind of rethink that a little bit, I think, because, again, this trait was really good for solo builds because you could just stack 25 vuln really effectively. Wow, seriously, we're not done. These changes are big. This is a massive patch, an absolutely huge patch with a lot of interesting changes. We are not done yet. Again, we've got Rev, Thief, and Warrior to go. What the fuck is going on here? What is going on? Okay, I think Rev is going to be quick, because Rev is actually very, very easy to talk about. Power Rev is getting juiced to hell. Shackling Wave, more damage. Death Strike, more damage. Impossible Odds, more damage. Jade Winds, not really super relevant, but more damage. Rising Tide, more consistent damage. Now, instead of having to have Scholar over 90%, now when you have your health over 75%, you just get 10% more damage. Elemental Blast, cooldown, 12 seconds. Burst of Strength, cooldown, 12 seconds. Duration doubled. Damage bonus is 15%. Basically, this is better now, because it's 15% for 10 seconds, as opposed to 25% for 5 seconds. So it kind of works out a little bit better. Of course, you kind of land your burst window with here. So obviously 25% for a short time can be really good if you fit all of your good skills into that window. But because the cooldown's lower, you have higher uptime because it's longer as well. And it also applies on Condi damage. Chaotic Release, which you also use in your rotation, by the way, up to 4.0. Herald is going to be insane. The Power Herald and Quickness Herald, these builds are going to be monsters. There's no other way to put it. I mean, I honestly wasn't expecting. I don't understand where these changes came from, to be honest. Herald is already amazing, in my opinion, especially seeing as Firebrand is getting changed as well, right? That, bear in mind, Herald's main competitor, Firebrand, is also getting significantly changed to help balance it, and Herald is getting buffed a lot. Poof. Boom. Yeah, I mean, there's no commentary needed. This build is going to be insane. Like, Quickness Herald and Power Herald are both going to be fucking tasty here. And honestly, bear in mind, this also helps out the Quickness build because you can spam these facets faster and therefore get better uptimes. So this actually helps in a twofold way with Herald. Very good. And yeah, they make Condi Herald a bit better in PvP. Because they tried to buff it. It still wasn't good. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure if it's going to be good afterwards either. But yeah, there you go. Oh, and here's a good one. They kind of save PvP here. Vindicators can no longer dodge while immobilized. Yeah, this was broken. And absolute cancer in PvP, and you can't do that anymore. That's a big nerf, actually. And again, they continue trying to nudge you. I think they really want you to play this more aggressive build, a DPS build, rather than playing this kind of bunker, annoying playstyle. And this is really going to help that. You're going to be much less effective as a bunker when you can't dodge while immobilized. That's all. Pretty good. Spear of Archimedes, it does 5.0 power coefficient in PvE, and you also have a higher power coefficient, you get more energy per target hit in PvE areas. So you can really spam your dodges out there for additional DPS, all that kind of good stuff. Get more dodges out there, maintain that modifier, get some DPS going. So buffs here to the Alliance stance for PvE. Why are they doing this? Well, because right now, Jowless, I think, is actually best in slot on Vindicator. So basically, your best in slot damage is also amazing utility. So what they want to do is to say, well, if you want to do even more damage, well, now you can play Alliance stance, and you can use these abilities and absolutely destroy and do some serious DPS with Alliance stance, while also toning it down a little bit there and just making the support better. Better cleanse and a slightly easier way where you can give boons, and I believe Stunbreaker as well. So yeah, Vindicator, the full glass cannon Vindicator build is going to do a lot of damage. And bear in mind, actually, that Alliance stance still actually does have some pretty good support. You have an AoE heal skill, you have Tree Song, you have boon access there. So it's not like you have zero support. You're going to have to swap over to that skill to use that, but you can still do some team support if you're using Alliance stance. It's just that you won't have stability. And stability, you're going to have to trade off a bit of damage to get that. So that just makes sense, right? But yeah, I mean, Rev, happy days. Happy days for Rev, and really good news for PvP with this slight change to hopefully prevent Bunker Vindicator from ruining everyone's day yet again. Okay, yeah, that's it. Rev, pretty standard. Like I said, I can get through that one pretty quickly because they're all good. Thief. And our primary goal for this Thief was to update the usability of Deadeye in PvE. And yeah, well, let's get right to that. This is a weird one. You can move while kneeling. And kneel is not cancelled when you get CC'd. And you move at 75% reduced speed. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's actually that good. I mean, like, is this really that good? I mean, you're so slow. Like, you can't do shit. You can't move away from anything at that. Like, that's not good. I mean, I guess it's better, right? You know, you could kneel down and still have a little bit of mobility while you're doing this, and you can do it in PvP as well. But I don't think this is actually... I mean, dude, maybe I'm going to be completely wrong about this, but I don't see this being good. 75% movement speed decrease is horrible. Like... Yeah, maybe if you give yourself super speed, you go really, really fast. That would be pretty funny, actually. Yeah, I don't know about this one. Yeah, I don't know about this one. And they actually reduced the range on a few abilities here. And these are some of the kind of annoying ones, right? Some of the abilities here. When you're kneeling down, skirmish shot, the range is now lower. Which is pretty interesting, actually, if you think about that. That's, actually, that's when you're not kneeling, rather. Okay. Yeah. Bit of an interesting meme there, to reduce the range of some of these abilities. And, good news for PvE Deadeye mains, is that, well, in particular PvE, but, I mean, everywhere, really, but now you kind of guaranteed get your target with your Death Judgment, right? So your Death Judgment, your Stealth Attack, and now, boom, you can guaranteed land this, because it will pierce through all targets until you hit your marked target. However, the damage is a lot lower to unmarked targets. This is not really, again, to make it into a super good AoE skill. It will make it better, obviously. It's more like so you can guarantee that you snipe your target. Basically, a consistency improvement rather than necessarily a balance. Oh, we want to make it mega OP. So, kind of fun. Kind of fun there with Deadeye. Not sure if that really does anything, but, I mean, hey, you can walk now. You can walk everywhere if you want. You have, like, a RP walk on an ability. And other than that, we've got some changes to Thief with Dagger. Dagger now does a lot more damage. You can see just power coefficients up across the board here. Heartseeker, big damage. Although, honestly, I feel like the coefficient here is not amazing, to be honest. Wait, game, do you mind? Can we quieten down here a little bit? I'm trying to talk about Thief. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't actually seem that good. 2.5 power coefficient on Heartseeker. Is that really that good? Because you get locked in animation. The animation is relatively long. Maybe it's okay, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's decent. But it just doesn't seem that strong. To be honest, like, you know, your auto attacks are pretty good, especially if you're playing Daredevil with staff. Auto attacking is very good. Ooh, yeah. Very nice. But I think the main goal with this is kind of cloak and daggering stuff and still backstabbing. This is kind of the way Thief kind of plays out. It's like cloak and dagger, backstab. Classic Thief gameplay right there. So that having more damage is pretty big. And yeah, Daggers is going to blast a little bit harder now. You've got better auto attacks, slightly more damage on Cloak and Dagger, and away you go, right? And then Daredevil also has another option for its elite skill. Now, Impact Strike does significantly more damage. Now, Thief kind of has a good elite skill already. It has Basilisk Venom, right? A really strong crowd control effect for breaking Defiance bars. But hey, now you can take Impact Strike and do a 4.0 damage coefficient. Pretty good. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not too bad, not too bad. In that regard. But I think they just want to, I think they want to improve the kit overall, right? I think they just want to make the kit overall a bit better. More power damage. And here's the big one, actually. Here's the big one. So, Spectres were a bit deflated after the last patch, and I was actually expecting to do this. Yeah, this was a good one. I think this is another change that I thought would be really good. And one, quality of life. It's going to be harder to double tap and insta-cancel your Shroud on Spectre. But more importantly, now, check this out. While you're in Shadow Shroud, 33% damage reduction in PvE only. So, we can actually learn a few things here. We're going to learn a few things. This means they probably can't split the Shroud number. Otherwise, they would have done. Bear that in mind. So we're kind of learning here. But they can have some damage reduction while you're in Shroud. Which is good. This actually gives a lot of the sustain and durability back to Spectre, actually. A lot of it goes back to Spectre. Which is nice, right? That, you know, you love to see that. That's very cool stuff. I think they could maybe look at Consume Shadows and making Consume Shadows a little bit better, because the actual healing you get hasn't been compensated for, of course, but it certainly helps with your sustainability and not dying and getting, like, immediately knocked out of Shroud. So, not too bad. Not too bad indeed. And of course, there was also a note they said on the stream. They actually might want to redesign Support Spectre a little bit in general, because they don't like the fact that Consume Shadows is basically the build, right? Consume Shadows is the thing that Spectre does to support its allies mostly. That's like the really big trait. And they are not a huge fan of everything being completely centered around exactly that trait. So they might actually take a look and redesign a few things on Spectre to make its support build a little bit less reliant on that trait being incredibly strong, which I think does make sense, because it is kind of a busted trait, to be honest. It's a very strong effect and is very build defining, which is not necessarily problematic, but yeah. A few things missing here with Spectre in particular, and it looks like this will be for another time. Maybe there'll be like another really big patch where they do a lot of stuff like this, where they get rid of the spam boons. You'll notice that Herald still spams for boons, Druid still spams for boons, and of course Spectre Wells, you still spam them basically off cooldown to apply your alacrity and your other boons. So it is actually worth noting that hasn't been resolved here, and I think that really does need to be resolved to really help the playability. Because again, if you think about it, guys, Firebrand almost has got a playability upgrade in some ways, and stuff like Spectre, Herald, Druid, and so on, they're still lagging behind a lot. Yeah, Gyros too on Scrapper. Right, so that's another big missing change there. NG didn't get any gyro changes. There's a lot of things kind of missing here, and that does... there are still going to be issues with play rates and so on, simply because of the lack of playability improvements of some of these boon providers. But that's how it is. Some good changes to Thief. And yeah, just to clarify here, Impact Strike is the Daredevil elite skill. Finishing Blow is the third ability. Like, it's a 3-attack chain, right? You do Impact Strike, then you hit him again, then boom! You finish off a downed enemy, or if you just one-tap someone if you actually kill them with the skill. In PvE, well, you know, in PvP too, actually, but, you know, this skill now hits really hard in PvE. So it's like an alternative elite skill for Daredevils, if you want to use the Daredevil elite skill. Okay. Oh, I think we made it to the end. Ooh, we made it. Here we go. Warrior. And, thankfully, actually a pretty easy one to sort out here, actually. So, Fierce Blow, a hammer skill. Now, the bonus damage from this skill always affects defined enemies. This is a big deal, because this skill actually hits like a truck against CC'd enemies. And now the fact that you have that all the time, bear in mind, gamers, Hammer Spellbreaker is already pretty good, actually. It's not the optimal build right now, but it's pretty bloody good. And now that this is here, you're going to juice with this pretty hard, actually. Banner of Tactics is now a stun break as well. This is turning into one of the most ridiculously stacked abilities. Banners have got to get reworked. We need to be splitting the pulsing boons away from the active effect, because this is just absurd now. Look at this. Super speed stab, quickness, pulsing resistance, and a stun break on one ability. The thing is, it doesn't help. It's absurdly unusable, right? Because you can't separate out all these skills. It's all loaded into one, so you can't really be reactive with it. You have to spam it off cooldown in order to actually get value out of it, to apply your boons, but you don't want to. You want to use your super speed on demand. You want to use your stab on demand. You want to use your resistance on demand. I think this actually might be more of a world versus world change, actually. Maybe even a PvP change, potentially, because this is already pretty damn good, actually, in those game modes. Making a stun break, too, is even better. So this might actually just be, like, trying to nudge it in those two game modes rather than PvE, and then reworking it a bit more in PvE when the time comes. I would definitely expect that to happen at some point. And then a few traits here have happened. And specifically, they are pretty tasty. So, Unsuspecting Foe. Increased critical hit chance against disabled foes. Well, now you get that on Defiance Bar foes as well. Ooh. Now, it is only 25%, but hey, free 25% crit against bosses for Warrior. That's rather delicious. Oh, and it's not over. It is not over, gamers. Check this out. In the defense trait line, I believe, we have Merciless Hammer. The bonus damage from this trait will now always affect Defiant foes. That's a 20% damage mod. Now, that is in defense. Bear that in mind. That is in the defense trait line. But defense does have some damage mods in it. You can do Cull the Weak in there as well. And now Merciless Hammer with another 20% damage modifier pretty much all the time. That's pretty good. You know, that's not horrible. That's really, really not horrible at all. You can do Stalwart Strength as well while you have Stability, which you can probably maintain pretty well with Hammer, right? I think. Damn, this build is kind of juicy. Yeah. There's a lot of damage modifiers here for Hammer Spellbreaker. I could definitely see some kind of play being here. Unsuspecting Foe is a bit trickier because it's in the arms trait line, which you kind of don't really want in this regard. But I could certainly see some kind of defense Spellbreaker popping up in PvE with Hammer, because you can just completely blast with this. Well, I guess not even necessarily with Hammer, right? Because, of course, Merciless Hammer, you don't need to have a hammer, do you, right? I think it just... Oh, no, actually, no, you do need to have a hammer, actually. Yeah, no, you gain adrenaline whenever you land a CC, but you need a hammer and a mace to have increased damage when you're fighting a shutdown foe. Yeah, because that does actually make some sense there. Okay, yep. And, good news. For Berserker mains. Are you gamers ready? Are you gamers ready here? Check this out. Bloody Roar has been fixed. So, what was wrong with it? So it basically was giving you additive damage, so in other words, just plus 25% damage, rather than multiplicative. And we might have to get the old calculator out here to demonstrate why this is so much better. Okay, let's go ahead and do some maths. So, hang on. We're going to do a little bit of maths just to demonstrate why this is the case. So, this is what happens when you multiply numbers together. So let's imagine here that we have some damage modifiers. We have a 10% mod, 1.1, and then we have a 1.3 mod, a 1.5, and another 1.3. Now, what normally happens is that all of these modifiers actually affect each other. So in other words, you can see here that they multiply together. They're multiplicative, right? And the 1.1 is affected by the 1.3, which is affected by the 1.5, which is affected by the 1.3 again, right? So you can see that that is good. We get a really big number there. However, if we do the same thing with addition, you'll notice... Oh, hang on a minute. I need to actually slightly change the way this works, because we need to do it like this. It needs to be 1 plus 0. If we add our modifiers instead of multiplying them, let's see what happens. You'll see that we actually end up with a much lower number. Because think about that, 2.2, so 220% damage, let's imagine, versus 270, nearly 280% damage. This is a big loss. And this is why multiplicative is better than additive. Because the way to think about it is all the modifiers affect each other. Whereas you can see here that the other modifiers don't affect each other. They're actually independent, whereas multiplicative isn't. And that's why this is better. And this was bugged, and it wasn't working correctly, and now it will. Now, Power Berserker is definitely, it fell off a lot. It really suffered from banners not getting stats, because, of course, it got even more bonus stats from having banners. That was the way the doubled standard trait worked. And this was a bit sad for Power Berserker, so Power Berserker got hit super hard, actually. Yeah. Watch out for that one. So, yeah. I mean, that's it. Power Berserker is now fixed. And also true with Outrage as well. Because Headbutt was this really weird thing in PvE. Because they made it not remove stability anymore. So the way the build worked was you would Headbutt, stun yourself, and then break out with Outrage and extend your Berserk. Now, here's the problem. This wouldn't always happen in PvE anymore, because, well, what if you have stability? Then you don't get stunned. That means you can't activate Outrage, so you lose your Berserk uptime, and you're pretty sad. And that was actually across all Berserk builds. All Berserker builds uses the Connie builds too, actually. This was really annoying to play around, to be honest, and, you know, your team can basically troll you, right, by giving you loads of stability, and therefore you can no longer stun yourself to actually Outrage. Basically, they made it not do this. In PvE. Now, you just gain additional Berserk duration if there's an enemy nearby. And this actually means that you can spam this basically off cooldown, because you're standing next to a boss, and you just spam it off cooldown and extend your Berserk. So this probably really actually kind of fixes the flow of this build. It's a bit weird gameplay. This is going to be a literally spam it off cooldown ability, I guess, to extend your Berserk as much as possible, and then maybe stun break sometimes, occasionally. So, hey, weird gameplay, but it is what it is. That certainly helps us out a lot. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's move on to some other changes and some world versus world stuff here, actually, a little bit. And basically, Scorched Earth, very powerful damage ability for Berserker and World of Sword. Damage just goes down a little bit per pulse. It's a significant change overall, but certainly not the end of the universe. Just in general, ArenaNet want to tone down range damage a bit right now. And again, this is a range DPS build. We saw some nerfs to Dragon Hunter in World vs. World earlier. It's just taking down the range DPS just a touch, just a little smidge, right? And then allowing stuff to kind of get in there. Oh no, they increased it! Oh, never mind. I lied. I read it the other way around. They're actually buffing it. Ooh. Well, I guess that is fair enough, if you think about it. Because Berserker was definitely playable, but Dragon Hunter was preferable, right? So I guess it makes sense to buff it. I'm actually surprised. But there it is. Damage increase. Enjoy. Berserker stonks up. Again, just in their goal to kind of shake up the meta a little bit, I guess. They want to see some more Berserkers. Less Dragon Hunters, more Berserkers. Still the heavy classes. We've got to get some of the other armor weights in there, you know what I mean? Well, yeah, we've got Revs too. And Guardians. Nice. But But, you know, to be fair, you've still got some other classes that still perform pretty damn well, I'd say. And finally, a bit of a change here. We have a little bit more damage on Breaching Strike. So this is actually a buff to all game modes. So this skill now deals bonus damage to foes without boons, which is obviously amazing, right? In PvE, because obviously bosses don't have boons all the time. So not only do you get the nice utility, you get really nice utility here from being able to stab things and remove boons on Spellbreaker, which is pretty good, right? Like some fights have boons, fractals have boons to remove, all that kind of good stuff. And now, after you've removed the boons, you do even more damage. That's pretty sick. That's not bad, is it? You know, I like it. So yeah, another buff to Spellbreaker in PvE to help it do even more damage. And this build's already been performing pretty well, actually. So this just makes it even better than it already is. Happy days. And it could be a lot more damage, too. It doesn't say how much, but it could end up being quite a lot of extra damage, I'd say. Maybe like another 20% damage, maybe even 25%, which would be very significant. And Enchantment Collapse. Increase the internal cooldown from 0.99 to 1.04 in World versus World only. What is this? Increase the internal cooldown? So wait, they don't want it... Wait, if this is it supposed to be damage coefficient here? But what they want is, they don't want it pulse. They don't want this activating on every proc of Winds of Disenchantment. That's what I can think. If this isn't a typo, if they make it activate every 1.04 seconds, they are exactly nerfing Winds of Disenchantment. Yes? No? Yes? Yes? Ah, yes. That's exactly what it is. Enchantment Collapse is another boon removal outlier that we want to address in World vs. World for this update. We've increased the cooldown ever so slightly to reduce its effectiveness with Winds of Disenchantment. That's exactly what they're doing. Okay, yeah. I almost thought that was a typo. Were they trying to say damage coefficient? But no. They are actually just subtly increasing the cooldown so it doesn't activate on every single pulse of that, for a little bit less boon removal on that bubble, because bubble is still a very powerful effect in its own right. So having this crazy synergy of one removing a boon and then doubling that up with Enchantment Collapse, because again, Enchantment Collapse, what does it do? It means whenever you remove a boon from a foe, then everyone loses boons, right? Makes sense. Makes a little bit of sense there. Okay. Is that it? Did we make it to the end? I can't believe it. We did it. We did it. That's a long one. That's a long one. You know what? No Heal Warrior reworks. But actually, let me talk about this. We're at the end here, so I'll do a little outro. I want to actually emphasize how much of a difficult position ArenaNet are in. A lot of the problems in the game are non-trivial to fix with numbers. For example, Heal Warrior can't really be made good without redesigns. It needs, I don't know, a heal banner. It needs a good, like, weapon to use. A main hand weapon to heal with. It needs, like, honestly, it needs an elite spec, right? It's not easy to fix that. Druid needs to have, its alacrity application reworked. Scrapper probably needs to have its quickness application reworked a little bit, right? These are really hard changes to actually implement. You can see that what we've got here is one really big rework on Firebrand and a bit of a tweak to mech with the design to make them more balanced. But these are the expensive changes. These are the things that are really hard to do development-wise to code, right? And hard to plan and hard to think about and come up with solutions to. So if you're thinking, wait, why didn't they make Heal Warrior good? Why did they not make Heal Chrono good? Why did they not make, why did they not fix my boon application on Scrapper or Herald or whatever? It's because those are the changes that are really hard to actually do from a development perspective. And we can see that they are trying, and I think they really went for the most important ones. I think that everyone would agree that Firebrand and Mech were the two most problematic specializations in the game, right? So I think it's fair they started with Firebrand and Mech, right? But I think they're going to go for more. I think we are going to see reworks to how this boon application works in PvE. I think we are going to see maybe even stuff like Scourge eventually reworked so it can be allowed to be good in PvP again. Because right now, Scourge is not allowed to be good in PvP. It's so obnoxious with its design, it can never be good in PvP. Ever. Not in a million years. It's not allowed. And that might get changed at some point to make it better in that game mode. You know, we are going to see a Fervent Force rework. So Untamed is Untamed and not just Fervent Force, the elite specialization. Right? This is the design rationale here. And I think it makes sense. No, I don't think it makes sense. I agree with the design philosophy and the approach that ArenaNet is taking here. They can't do everything in one go, though. And again, I don't want to be too much of a doomer about this, so I'm just going to give you guys an estimate. It will take them years to fix all of the design problems with the game. They're off to a good start right now, but I'm sure as a lot of you are aware, right? A lot of you players are going to say, what about my Tempest changes? What about this? Yeah, these are design problems. These specs have design issues. Elementalist skills need to be redesigned. Yeah, they need to change the utility skills so they aren't just pure damage. They do something. So they actually have something that's good, right? Because most LE skills are just kind of shit, right? Like, I don't look, they're just not good. Most LE utility skills are pretty weak for PvE. That needs to change. But that's going to be really hard. They're going to have to redesign. They maybe have to redesign staff. Maybe they have to look at Dagger, because Dagger is super outdated as well. Maybe they have to look at Focus. Maybe they have to look at Dagger offhand, right? There's a lot to do here with this stuff. There's a lot of stuff to handle and change the design. Maybe Warrior banners need to get changed again to make them function a bit better, make them more reactive. Maybe they need to change the way quickness. Maybe Firebrand gets quickness. They already have that. Maybe Spellbreaker just gets quickness. Because I don't think it's a good idea to have quickness and alacrity on a core class. It's caused a lot of problems with Blade Sworders. Nika is now, lamenting in the chat, right? And I think that's really worth keeping in mind when we're looking at these changes and thinking like, wait, why didn't you do this, ArenaNet? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do it? It's because they want to be careful. They want to make sure they get it right and that people like the design and that they're happy with it. Right, and I think that they did a really elegant set of changes to Firebrand here that I'm really impressed by, and I cannot wait to see what they do to other problematic design elements in the game on other elite specializations. I think this is a very good approach to it that should keep almost everyone happy, in my opinion. I'm sure there'll be some complaining, right? And yes, I'm just going to get this in the end, guys. I am sad they didn't buff Ellie more, because now I have to listen to the Ellie mains complain another 3 months for the next patch. And that's never fun. That's you hate to see that. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. But they did actually buff Ellie, by the way. Callus is kind of juicing. Right, you know, yeah, I got baited by that. You know, I wasn't paying attention on the stream. Those did come out of nowhere there, actually. And the Scepter stuff is pretty fun, too. But anyway, that's not the point. That is not the point. Some really good changes overall, I think, and I think there's going to be new exciting builds to play in the next patch. And again, like I said, this is a very iterative approach. It's going to take a while to get there, right? But we are on the journey. The journey, my friends, is where we are going. You love to see it. You love to see it. Fantastic stuff.